This is what I said about the Democratic response, is that there should have been some top Democrat on TV every day for the last 2 weeks yelling, where are the tests? Why don't we have tests? What happened to them? Where are they? And just to like prompt people to pay attention and prompt news organizations again to invest in reporting in what exactly happened with the tests, why we never could use a WHO test. Like these are questions that they're going to be, and I'm now terrified they're going to be assigned to the, well, it's too late to play the blame game category, and it's time to move forward, not backwards line. And I can just see that happening.
Well, I mean, let's talk about that briefly. You know who would be really good to do this would be, I mean, Chuck Schumer his response has been, I don't know. I mean, I've watched some of his speeches on the Senate floor, and he just doesn't have he's just not the person to do this. And neither is Nancy Pelosi, frankly.
No, they're not.
Who would be perfect to do this? Would be a very dynamic presidential candidate and presumptive nominee for the Democratic Party would be out there doing this. I mean, if Joe Biden does not have the energy to do this,
right? And
I don't know, has he come out with a plan?
There's something on his website. I think that I saw a thing on his website like a week ago or something, but I don't know. Like he hasn't, obviously it's been days since he's been in front of a camera, so he's not telling us about his plan.
I mean, I saw Bernie came out, he gave his speech, he said $2,000 a month, et cetera, et cetera. I mean, I think that's ended up very close to what the Congressional Progressive Caucus has called for. But Bernie is, not the presumptive nominee at this point.
Right.
And Joe Biden is. And where the F is Joe Biden? Like, this is what everybody's concern was about this guy, is that, it's one thing that he doesn't have to campaign, but he needs to, they keep telling us like he's moving into the general election. If he's moving into the general election, he needs to be out there right now pushing Donald Trump.
Yes.
And
putting
I mean, this is absurd. It's absurd.
Like he needs to be, again, he just needs to be on TV every single day, linking the name Donald Trump to failed response in the minds of people. Like that's just job number one. He's supposed to be the Democratic nominee in a presidential election year. There's a disaster happening. The president bears personal responsibility for the response. Where is he?
And this is I remember that sort of that famous saying by Barack Obama to Barney Frank, when Barney Frank had gone to Hank Paulson and said, hey, instead of giving money to the banks, give the money to the homeowners and they'll pay the banks. And Paulson said, you know what? I'm good with that. We just need President-elect Obama to sign off on it. And Barney Frank went to Obama, and Obama said, there's only one president at a time, Barney. And then Bush was like, well, if Obama doesn't sign off on it, then, let's just give it to the banks. And that's basically where the stimulus, that whole bailout started with the Fed. And that became the norm. I mean, I think it was inexcusable then for Obama to do that, right? Like, if there's one president at the time, then that president can make the decision. But you're being asked to sign off and give your opinion and see if you're comfortable with it. And in retrospect, I think that was just Obama's way of saying, like, how can I get away with this and not okay it, but not veto it, essentially.
Right. Yeah.
But this is a very, very different situation where you cannot take that tact. And if you're not going to take that tact, I mean, Joe Biden should be out there right now. If he is the presumptive nominee, and it appears he is, and he certainly thinks he is, and we're certainly being told this is all about the general election, what he should be doing out there is saying, look, I'm naming the first person to my cabinet, Ron Klain. He dealt with the Ebola thing. Now, all the people in the know, suspect that's what's going to happen, but he should just do that right now so that he can create basically a shadow administration to basically, because this isn't just about like electoral politics. This is about forcing Donald Trump and the government to respond in a real way, not in a, we got a malaria drug and what do you call it? I was listening to Alex Jones and he says that will work. So where's the FDA on this? Like, we need something real going on.
Yeah. Yeah. Right. And right. Because, and for someone, it's not just the job of fact checkers on Twitter to be like, hey, the thing the president said about the hospital ship, that wasn't real. If that happens, that'll be a few weeks from now.
Yep.
Someone needs to act, Democrats and Biden, obviously, like you said, Schumer is operating at the absolute peak, the best he can do. This is absolutely the best he can do. And we can't expect more than this from Chuck Schumer. He put out a readout of a call where he told the president to ramp up the defense production.
Get on the ball,
all right,
bucko.
Yeah, exactly. Pelosi, she's fixated on means testing the response or whatever the hell she's doing. I don't know. But there needs to be someone saying the president is not, when he says things, you cannot believe them. You cannot trust him. He's not showing leadership. He's being the exact same person he's always been. And and this time the consequences are life and death. This is again, I don't know. They're leaving it as usual. They feel like their job is to leave that to neutral third parties to point out, and then get annoyed when they're not doing it effectively enough.
Right. We've outsourced our opinion to Glenn Kessler or whoever it is at the WAPO for Pinocchios. And we're really riding this guy to make sure that he gets it right, for the record. Joe Biden should be out there every day with a 5 p.m. press conference.
Yes.
Basically saying, here's the new information that we have. Here is what we implore the president must do. Here is where we feel he's not being straight with the American public. The American public deserves better than what's on the table right now and deserves better than the information and misinformation they're getting. Here's the real stuff. Ron, step over to the podium, deliver it. I'm going to stand right next to you as if I'm the president. I mean, this is...
Yeah.
I mean, it's not... I mean, yes, would it be helpful from an electoral standpoint? I'm sure. But this is needed because there's no, Glenn Kessler at the Washington Post giving 4 Pinocchios to Donald Trump's latest thing, or hedging. Well, technically, there are some people. There is a scientist, who is in a castle in France saying, try malaria drugs. So I'm only going to give this a half of Pinocchio, whatever it is. There needs to be a political force, someone creating, because Donald Trump responds to where he thinks he is with the public. This poll is not only dispiriting and disturbing in terms of what it says about the American public, but I'm terrified about how he reads this.
Yeah.
He's like, this is working, guys. Just come up with something else for me to say tomorrow.
Yeah, exactly. Right. Just give me a line. Just give me something to claim tomorrow that'll dominate TV headlines for an hour or two. And it doesn't matter if it is real or not.
I mean, go ahead.
I was thinking back to Katrina too, because I just used a comparison in another thing I wrote a while ago, but that became a problem for Bush, not when and because Democrats did anything, but because Anderson Cooper went to New Orleans and said, my God, this is a disaster. That's when it actually became a problem. And I'm just feeling okay, do we need a news anchor to start blaming the president because Democrats won't do it? I don't really know.
I mean, this has been a problem that they have had throughout. I mean, they were late in the impeachment thing. And it wasn't until, they basically came out and where public sentiment went against the president in terms of him being impeached. Now, of course, he got a slight bump after impeachment, but ask Susan Collins and Joni Ernst how that went.
Yeah.
And I would also say that, I don't know. I mean, I think there's a lot of look. I think a lot of people are going to come out and they're going to vote against Donald Trump. But I am really nervous about how just even these polls embolden this lunatic, and
Right.
and then I would add on top of this, like, I don't know. I have not seen what Schumer has said about what we know of these senators who.
Yeah.
We got Richard Burr. We got
Who liquidated their holdings
yes,
like last month.
Loeffler, Inhofe, Perdue, Johnson, and I suspect Dianne Feinstein. There's been some talk. I haven't seen specific reporting on this, but there may be more Democrats. And this is the thing that, like, the Republicans. You see Tucker Carlson out there, talking about Burr needs to be arrested and Loeffler needs to go down. Burr and Loeffler are, are basically cinema and Manchin to those people.
Yeah. Exactly.
They're cinema and Manchin. And it's like, we need to be able, and Feinstein, I would say also, like, that's a blue state. There's not going to be, we're not going to get a Republican there. If any of these senators sold, their stocks of any significant amount, like, I don't know how, if they have their, managers, periodically sell stocks or whatever. But if there's like a significant amount of stock that was sold by these people, they should all be forced to resign.
Yes.
Democrats should be holding hearings in the House. They should be calling for the resignations in the Senate. These people need to go. Like,
and
they
the thing
did
is, like,
not tell us.
Yeah. They're going to treat it as a narrowly legal question of whether the law was violated, and they're going to say, "Oh, well, it'll be an ethics investigation or something." But, like, no, like, you need to treat it as if it, no matter what the extenuating circumstances are, you need to treat it as a problem. And the other problem is, they set precedent for this when they welcomed Menendez back with open arms.
Yeah,
they didn't, and Menendez again, blue state, could have been replaced. Not if there had been an open election for that seat, would have been replaced by a better senator. Like, just would have been. Same with Feinstein. But they're this, like, the incumbent protection is their overriding concern over nearly everything else.
Yeah,
and Republicans don't think that way. They are willing to throw people overboard. They are more than willing to throw people overboard.
Without a doubt. Without a doubt. I mean, we're seeing it with the Loeffler. They want Collins in Georgia, and they would love to get rid of Burr. He'll be appointed by a Republican, or what is it? He'll be appointed. Burr would be appointed, I think, by a Democratic governor. I'm not sure, but it has to be from the same party. So it has to be a Republican. But you get a better Republican, I guess, than Burr. I mean, I don't know how much better, but some better. I don't know.
Right.
But this is stunning. This is just stunning incompetence and just sort of the Democratic leadership is just bad. They're bad at this. Like, they just it's one step forward, two steps back with them, because there's always stuff that they're not, like they're undercutting even the decent things that they do. They undercut it politically, and also just sort of like, I don't know, ethically. But they have to be willing, and maybe Chuck Schumer sold stocks. I don't know, but this is and frankly, like, you don't even need to call hearings. You just keep calling for their resignation, and then you ask them, say, well, can we have an ethics hearing? Why? We don't need to. We know what you did.
We know what you did.
Horrible. Resign.
Yeah.
There is no no debating about this. What you did was a disservice to the American public. You held back on this information, and it wasn't because you weren't confident about it. You sold stock based upon it. You told donors based upon it.
Yeah.
I mean, can folks imagine just for a moment, like, whenever they knew this, if Burr went out and said the president is not being forthright with the American public, I believe we are looking at a pandemic, the likes of which we have not seen since 1918, which infected 500 million people across the world. It killed like 650,000 Americans. It killed several million, more, 5 million, maybe 20 million across the world. I mean, it just blows my mind, right? Like, this is, No wonder why people think that half these creatures are changelings and they're all part of like some type of secret cabal.
Yeah, yeah, and like right, that like they're it would have been, my God, if in February, any Republican senator in February, if they had been basically like sounding the panic button, it would have been huge.
Yep.
It would have been huge. If they had been saying, like, we need to be panicking about this. We're not ready. We're doing nothing to prepare. The CDC test doesn't work. Like, we had a lot of time when they knew how bad this could get, when nothing was being done to address that.
And I still feel like from a federal response, we're not, I mean, have you seen that video of the kids at, in Florida?
Yeah.
It's incredibly disturbing. I don't,
Right.
my capacity to play video is extremely limited at the moment, but,
Oh God, people are watching this, aren't they? I was like, oh.
Well, they can't see you.
Yeah, right.
But I don't have the most flattering picture of you up there. I've got like 2 images. I mean, you look good in it. You probably look better than you do now. I mean, that's going to be the hardest part of this for me, is just like, I mean, fortunately, I'm just in my underwear right now.
Right.
Wearing my top shirt. But but by I think in a week or two, I'm just going to be showing up in like one of those like sleeveless T-shirts and
Right.
God knows.
Yeah.
But
We'll all be cutting our own hair.
well, that's actually going to be an issue for me too. So, all right. So let me ask you this: like, what? I mean, I feel like we could have another talk, and maybe we will again soon, about just sort of like this experience. I mean, I don't have a sense of how many people are doing this. Most of the people I talk to are in big cities, although, and I'm upstate, outside of New York now, and I can tell you, like, I went to the Home Depot yesterday to get some lumber and some tools. I got very frustrated yesterday with my setup, and so I went out and just cut some stuff and pruned some trees and stuff like that. And there was only about like 4 people in the whole Home Depot. And
Wow.
but at the same time, like, none of the people working there are wearing gloves. They're not like, nobody there is, keeping 6 feet away, and I'm just like trying to have a conversation with them and just going, put my arm up in front of a face, so it's still that sort of sense of like, I don't want to be the weird guy who's all paranoid about this. But
Yeah.
I mean, I kept my distance. I also saw something that, and I've been to this store many times, and maybe I just didn't notice. There's not many people there, but I saw 3 people drive up. They got out of their car. They were young, probably in their 20s, maybe. 2 men and a woman. One of the man and the woman went in one entrance. The man went in the other, and I was just looking at it. I was like, there's something strange about what was going on. And I was loading stuff up, and they come running out of the store from different sides. Their shirts filled with junk, and they jump in the car and speed off.
Wow.
And they take off.
Yeah.
And I tried, I tried to get their license number, but they were,
Right.
I mean, and I don't know if that happens every day at that store, or if we're watching something that's, changing. But it's also hard when you're in a rural area to get a sense of like what other people are doing.
Yeah, totally. Yeah. I mean, it's surreal in New York right now, because the streets are empty, and obviously I got sick a week ago. I've been like isolating myself. So, my sense of what is going on in the world is through my window mostly, but I've been taking walks at night, staying away from people. And like, it's funny because the bodega's still open. I could still go in there and get toilet paper even.
Right.
But things are otherwise shut down. Out in Minnesota, my mom is still going to work. But I feel like that's going to get shut down soon too. She's like the only one in her office basically. It's that's the weirdest part, is like, you don't know how other people are experiencing this really. And you don't know what, like, if I heard, I heard a party on my block 2 nights ago. But at the same time, like most people are staying home, but it's just such a like impossible thing to wrap your mind around that you don't really know how other people are actually dealing with it.
What's also, I think, true is that I would bet that every single person at that party was without child.
Yeah. Oh, of course. Yeah. Absolutely.
And, I mean, this is, there's always like a difference between sort of like cohorts in society, but now it seems to be very distinct. Like, I think that the people who are going out the most are younger people without children and older people who are just like, I'm at the end of my life and, I'm not going to spend, I'm not going to spend it inside or something like that. I mean, because there's no real sense of like how bad this is or that, how it could be contained. I don't know. I don't know. And maybe it's just like I got 2 kids and I know most of the people I know at least. Well, no, I mean, I talk to people who don't have kids too on a regular basis, maybe more so. And it's a outside of New York, it's a very different dynamic. And I also hope that we don't get into one of these situations where like, prior to 9/11, it was much more intense and some of that had been coming back. The old, like, who cares about New York thing and those
totally,
people.
Yeah.
And I wonder if there is a cockiness about like, at least I'm not in New York, screw those guys. We'll see. But
I mean, I get the impression that the fact that the New York response, I think the New York preparation deserves to come in for a lot of criticism, but the fact that the response has been so aggressive, which includes ramping up testing, just means that what is happening in New York is just a more accurate picture of where a lot of other places are going to be. That's my fear. But yeah.
Yeah, I think that's true. I mean, I think your assessment of that is well. I mean, they canceled school right around where I think they should have. There was talk that they wouldn't, but they did, and for whatever reasons, I was surprised they didn't have like a plan already on the shelf for like, hey, if we ever have to. But part of it is like, one wonders what that head of the pandemic, sort of central command in our federal government would have been doing. Like, hey, New York, you guys, I want to see your annual plan or whatever it is. I mean, I don't know.
I want to see your plan for when you have to close the schools. I want to see your plan for getting, Cuomo's been banging about hospital beds, which is the number one thing you should be worried about. But like, what was the plan to bring in more hospital beds over the last month?
Yeah.
And that again, that maybe that would have been the guy in Washington's job would have been to call Governor Cuomo in January and say, what is your plan to quickly get 1,000 more hospital beds?
Well, it's going to be ugly, and there's really not much else we can do except for, stay away from people, stay in your home. I hope you feel better, Alex. And, we got to let people know who's responsible for the failure of response here. And, I hope Joe Biden, finds it within him to, to do set up a video camera in his house every day and do this. Zoom
Seriously.
in, Klain if he has to, but
he should call into your show.
Yeah, no kidding. All right. Well, Alex Pareene, thanks so much for your time today. I really appreciate it.
Of course, Sam.
Feel better. Stay safe.